Ladies and gentlemen, this video is all about multi-step equations. So we're going to get started by looking at a multi-step equation, something like this, and I'm going to give you some steps to solving that, and then we'll go ahead and solve that problem. When you first solve a problem like that, you want to simplify if you can. So that might mean using the distributive property or combining like terms. If you can do both, you always want to distribute before you combine like terms, because distributing is like multiplying and then combining like terms is adding or subtracting. So that's just following the order of operations. The next thing you want to do is look to see if those variables are on the same side or not. If they're not, you want to get all of those variables on the same side by either adding or subtracting. The next thing you want to do is get all the constants, those plain numbers, on the same side. You're, again, going to add or subtract those. And you want to get the variables and the constants on different sides of the equation. Then you're going to get the variable by itself by multiplying or dividing. And finally, you're going to check your answer by plugging in. So always remember, when you solve an equation, your goal is to isolate the variable, which means get the variable by itself. So that's your whole goal. It's like a puzzle on how to solve it, and remembering to do whatever you do to one side, you do to the other, but your whole goal is to get that variable by itself. So here's an example, the one that we showed you at the beginning. We're going to go ahead and solve this. Step one was to simplify if necessary, and that included distributing and combining like terms. I see here I have a number outside of parentheses multiplied by parentheses, so I've got to use the distributive property. I'm going to multiply both things in parentheses by -2. And so I get positive 12x, -6 times -2 is positive 12, and then positive 5 times -2 is a -10. The next step was to get all the variables on the same side, but I only have variables here, and so I can skip that step. The next step was to get the constants on the same side. Here are my constants, and so I want to get them on the opposite side as this 12x here. So I am going to add 10 to both sides. Doing the opposite gets this to be 0, which means it cancels out, so I'm going to add 10 to both sides and get -96. I'm going to bring down my equals, and I'm going to bring down my 12x. The next step is to divide to get the variable by itself, and I can see that my variable is equal to -8. The next thing I want to do is plug in just to make sure that's right. So here we go, -2 times -6, or times the quantity of -6 times -8 plus 5. This is going to give me 48 plus 5 is going to give me 53. I'm going to bring down my -2 times 53, and yes, that's -106, which is what we were looking for. So that works. Here's the last example that I'm going to solve for you. 4 times the quantity 8 minus c equals 8c plus 16 minus 6c. Following those steps that I gave you, First thing we need to do is simplify, which first is distributing. So when you distribute that 4, you get 32 minus 4c. We also need to combine like terms. And on this side, I can see I have 8c minus 6c, which gives me 2c, plus 16. Then we've got to get the variables all on the same side. So if I were to box my variables, I see I have them here and here. I always like to move the smaller one. You might have a different way to do it, but I always like to move the smaller one. It helps keep my result positive. So the smaller one is 4c. So I'm going to add 4c to both sides, right under where I had those variables before. Negative 4 plus 4 is 0, so that zeroes out. And I'm going to bring down my 32. I'm going to bring down my equals. 2c plus 4c is 6c plus 16. Here's my variable term now. I want to get the numbers away from that variable, just those constants. So the opposite of plus 16 is minus 16. On the other side of my equal sign, I'm going to subtract. 32 minus 16 is 16 equals 6c. And now I've got to divide by 6. So I am left with 16 over 6, which is going to reduce to, if I divide the top and bottom by 2, I've got 8 over 3 is equal to c. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and check that in my calculator to make sure that it works. And I checked it when I plugged in 8 over 3. I got 21 1/3 on this side, 21 1/3 on that side. So my answer is C equals 8 over 3. It worked. Here are some problems for you to try on your own. Good luck.